this is Dr. Tekemia Dorsey, and I am here to share 8 key tips with you, the parent, today with hopes to close the achievement gap phenomena. These 8 tips are being shared from my upcoming book entitled What You Need to Know in the First 45 Days of School. Now, as we all know, students aren't given a handbook on how to be reintroduced back into the school. And with that in mind, we all know that parents aren't given an additional handbook on how to help the students get acclimated back into the school year. And this video is not designed to give you 100% of those tips in making that transition from the summer to school flawless. As we know, education and life are filled with ups and downs, but it is with great hopes that the tips shared today do increase your awareness as a parent in how to close the achievement gap phenomena for your youth and your family so that success remains imminent for everyone involved. First of all, did you realize that the Maryland core curriculum that the Maryland school systems are currently using is focused on career and college planning? I was not aware that was one of its main focuses until today. I am actually doing this video blog because I believe that the key to a successful youth and a successful family and a successful educational endeavor are that of the parents. And I am a parent myself. I have 4 children in grades 1, 3, 5, and 12th grade, and I continuously see the struggle that happens with the gap in communication between home and school. So hopefully this information shared, or the book that you actually pick up for that's released on October 31st, will help increase your knowledge base on how to have not only a successful school year, but a successful one as it relates to your child and your relationship with your youth and your school. So let's get started. Tip number 1 is to establish that rapport. The rapport that we know between home and school is not as it should be in the beginning of the school year, because let's face it, you only really get one chance to speak with to be introduced to your students' teachers, and that's at the back to school night. We know that the back to school night forum is more of a group setting than one-on-one, and it's designed primarily to introduce you to the environment and the culture from which your child or your children will be in for 180 days. It is, on the other hand, how unfortunate that that rapport cannot be singled down to a one-on-one. However, there are things that can be done to improve the rapport between the teacher and the student. So let's explore tip number 2. Tip number 2 is meeting with your children's teacher. You don't always have to wait for an interim to come out or report cards to be distributed. You can literally open that lines of communication for positive dialogue just because. Teachers are always welcome and have an open door policy when parents are engaged. Hence, teachers want you to be engaged. And we as parents need to remain engaged. By being engaged and meeting with our student teacher or teachers on an occasion that is less stressful, it opens it helps to establish an understanding of who you are and your position and that of the teachers. One great example that is currently going on with me, with my youngest daughter who is in 3rd grade, is that Baltimore County Public Schools, just like most school systems in this county or the state of Maryland or any other school system, has a wonderful technology technology form that allows you to track grades online. And for us here in the state of Maryland, in Baltimore County School District, it's called bcsp1.org. I am also familiar with another online form that helps parents to track grades called Edline. What BCPS1 and Edline allow parents to do is to keep an actual day-to-day tracking of how their students are doing.
Just like Edline, BCPS1 allows you not only to streamline how your students grades, but also to communicate directly with their teacher. So for me, one of the things that I exercise on a weekly basis, on every Sunday, I actually sit down and I visit BCPS1 to view my 3rd, 5th, and 12th grade student weekly grades, because I want to be able to monitor their progress and to stay on top of how they're doing, and if at any point create an intervention if needed. So last week I just happened, or actually the beginning of the school year, I noticed my 3rd grader not doing so well in one subject area, but I figured, you know, it's the beginning of the school year, let me sit back for a minute and see how this goes. Still checking her homework, so on and so forth. Last week I happened to open up her weekly grades, and not just in one area, but in 3 subject areas there was a concern. Immediately I emailed the teacher, which this was on a Tuesday, to see if she was available for a preschool meeting or before school meeting on Monday, which was given her 5 days. Also on back to school night, I had the opportunity to share my contact information, so I also had the teacher's text phone number. So immediately I also text her just to see if she was available. Lo and behold, within 24 hours we had the time set up. So just before I decided to meet with the teacher to express my concerns, which is tip number 3, I wanted to be able to talk with my daughter to see exactly what her perception was of what was going on. One of the things that I realized that my daughter communicated with me is that she wears glasses, and sitting up at the front of the board or the front of the room to see the board actually helped as a strategy with us in previous years. So on back to school night, I mentioned that to her teacher, and she was placed in the forefront of the class, but recently had been switched, and I wasn't aware of this, which is fine. Continuing to hear the viewpoint of my daughter, so that, and the reason why I did this homework for myself was that I wanted to go in at least not only understanding what the concern was from my part, but also to advocate for that of my daughter. You know, perception is 20/20, but reality is what it is for our youth. So we always have to take into perspective their voice. So tip number 1 remains to establish the rapport with your children's teacher, and then number 2, meet with the teacher, but remember, you must first do your homework. Tip number 3 is express your concerns. Remember, you have your view, the teacher view, and then that of the truth. So you want to make sure that you actually voice your concerns, not in a negative way, but just one that adds balance, because in order for there to be a resolution, you first must have to know what the problem is. So again, tip number 3 is do your homework. Tip number 3 is express your concerns. But before you express your concerns, do your homework. Tip number 4, now that you have established rapport, you've met with the teacher, you've done your homework, and now you have expressed your concerns, ask for feedback. Seek the insight and advice of the expert that you're sitting in front of. Now, I am an expert as a parent because I am around my child 24/7 outside of the time that they're at school. At that time that they're in school, I'm the parent, but I'm not the expert. However, the expert is that individual or those individuals that have your children 5 days a week, from 7 to 3 or 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. So in this essence, you want to solicit the feedback of the expert. With doing so, a dialogue is open, and tip number 5 is now being placed in perspective, because you're now building a partnership or establishing a partnership. In one real life scenario that actually I bring this home is that when my 3rd grader wasn't doing so well last week, and I actually met with the teacher, that I was able to express the concerns and then also express the conversation I had with my daughter,
And then I was able to get the feedback from the teacher. What began to happen is that solutions throughout dialogue begin to come out in our discussion. For example, the teacher went subject by subject. I mean, she's only in 3rd grade, so it's not like we have 8 subjects to go through. But she started to identify, going through BCPS.1, the grades and a breakdown. In math, you know, with the new Common Core curriculum, it's not about facts anymore, but it is about proofing. The difference is that with my daughter in math is that she has to, or continue to learn, at least 5 different ways to validate an equation or validate a problem. It's not just facts the way what we grew up on. So that has been a struggle for her, but since then she has done well. So her grade has greatly increased in math. I did also learn that with Common Core, that across the spectrum you have subjects such as language arts, phonics, reading, and writing all lumped together. Now when I grew up, language arts didn't exist. It was English. Writing was separate, phonics was separate, and reading was separate. But now it's being clumped together under Common Core, which means that one grade represents all of these areas. So while my daughter is doing well in one area, she is not doing well in comprehension. So one of the other things that I also was made aware in the feedback is that students are given daily assessments. Yes, daily assessments. Now I had identified these, but didn't realize it was an ongoing strategy that's being used by the schools to determine how well the students are doing. So there is something called a reading response log, where students are given a block of information and then they can answer their questions separately. There's another assessment that is called a story assessment, where it is half vocabulary and half comprehension. Well, my daughter wasn't doing well with the reading part at all. Here with Common Core in 3rd grade and cutting the umbilical cord, back in 1st and 2nd grade, the teachers used to read the stories to the students as well as read the questions. Now the students are being made accountable and a little more independent. They are to read their own stories and to read their own questions, which means that they have to understand and comprehend exactly what the question is asking. Like most 3rd graders, when my daughter is answering the questions with her reading response log, you know, her imagination is all over the place. But what we have to do is to learn to narrow down her imagination and have it focused directly and pulling from what the main cause of the story is. So she let her be creative, but not too creative, whereas though she's missing the mark. So that was one of the things that I learned today from my daughter that we have to work on. And then when we get to the story assessment, that is completely independent, where now the student is not only reading it all by herself, but instead of the string of reading response questions on her reading response log, it's like 1 to 2 questions that's really requiring those skills and those traits needed to be able to comprehend this information in a shorter amount of time and be right on target. Well, I have to tell you, reading long passages wasn't my forte, but just because it wasn't there for me doesn't mean it has to be for her. So that is something that we have to work on. As I was having this discussion with my daughter's teacher, I started reflecting back on my oldest daughter, who is now in 5th grade. When she was going through 3rd grade, she used to when she read long passages or any passages, 2 of the strategies that we used was underlining a word and highlighting it. So that allowed her to quickly be able to move back and forth between questions and the story to find her answers. Light bulb going off, Mom, use it for your current child. And then it was a great reinforcement to hear my daughter's current teacher to stress the fact that some of the things that they are expecting the students to already know and to adapt, and that they can currently use it. But the one question I had from my daughter's teacher is, while we understand this new Common Core information, that the umbilical cord is being cut, making them more accountable along the way while they're trying to gather this information and use those strategies without this handbook, their self-esteem is dropping as they see a decline in their grades. How do you address that? The teacher did reassure me that this is something that they're also battling on their end, but they still have to do their job. So guess what, parents? We have to do our job. So again, recap. Number 1, establish that rapport with the parent, with the teacher. Number 2, schedule a time to meet with the teacher outside and or before report cards and or interims. Number 3, express your concern, whatever the concern may be. But before you do that, you have to do what? Yes, your homework. Research your grades online, speak with the student, and if your school system does not have the online tracking, you're only a text, an email, a drop-in or face-to-face meeting away from seeing exactly how your student is doing. Tip number 4, request feedback. We are the expert on our students outside of school. The teachers are the expert on your students in school. So when you compare the two, success is imminent. Tip number 5, establish a partnership. Establishing that partnership open up dialogue and ensures that everyone is doing well and that it's not a one-stop shop to or one answer to everything that's going on. It's the dialogue and the partnership which takes 2, which is ongoing beyond this one meeting. The one other thing before I move on to the next tip that I found or that I was able to piece together in the meeting today, or the meeting that I had with my daughter's teacher, is that she isn't doing well in the reading comprehension for language arts, phonics, writing, and reading. However, that least common denominator with her not doing well in reading comprehension has now rolled over into social studies. So once we get a handle on that reading comprehension and putting those strategies in place for the reading standpoint, then we're hoping that that's going to roll over into how well she does in social studies. The one thing that we have to realize in life is that there's a least common denominator in no matter what's going on. And for most kids that are not doing well in any area or any subject or a multitude of subjects in school, there's a fine line as to what's causing a problem. In this case, with my 3rd grader, what's causing her not to do well in social study is the same, one of the problems or the key problem in what's having her not to do well in reading. So that is something that we're going to work on. Another one of the things that came out of the meeting with my 3rd grade teacher, my daughter's teacher, is strategies. One strategy that she identified was that the use of board games. We don't know the importance that simple games can actually use if utilized correctly. Not only just utilizing board games, but just pulling questions out the way to have my daughter rationalize why the directions and the answers are what they are. But that comes in another video blog. Okay, so tip number 6, you want to, after you have established a rapport, met with the teacher, expressed your concerns, solicit feedback, establish a partnership, you want to now create a plan of action. Yes, please do not enter into any discussion with anyone without having plans in place for change. It's going to take time on our part as parents, but it's so worth it at the end. So what is my plan of action after this concern expressed with my 3rd grader? My plan of action for what I can do at home is to implement those strategies that's going to help her become a better reader and finding those key points with reading comprehension. Then also I'm hoping that information as we build her self-esteem is that it rolls over into social studies, so on and so forth. So that's what I'm going to do from a home standpoint. From a school standpoint, and also from home, I continue to monitor the weekly grades to see how she's doing and to stay in contact with the school, which leads us into tip number 7. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Don't allow this to be a one meeting scenario and that's it. The problem didn't start overnight. and it's not going to fix itself overnight. What they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither will this concern or concerns that you may have identified, even with having the communication and the meeting with the teacher. And I have to tell you, 99.9% of why most students or most people or most adults in the world don't do well is because we don't follow up. The other 99.100% reason why we don't do well is because we don't follow through. Anyone can start a process, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Follow through, follow through, follow through. For me, follow through not only means to continue checking my students' weekly, my daughter's weekly grades, not only following through to make sure that we're implementing these strategies where reading comprehension is concerned, but it also includes me following through with the teacher. One, making sure that my daughter's seat is moved from where it is to where we're hoping that she can be placed back near the board. Right now for my daughter, it's a psychological gap that's going on. When she's closer to the board, even though she only wears her glasses when needed, that has been a strategy for success for her. Immediately when she was removed from the board, her self-confidence declined. So I'm hoping with this follow through with her being moved back to an area or seating that's closer to the board, as I continue to work in the background with strengthening her skills and strategy and tips, that there might be a breakthrough for her. So I need to follow through with the teacher, even though the teacher did say it'll take a few days to rearrange her seat, to make sure that that is done. Not only that, in 30 days before report cards and interims come out and me checking the weekly grades, I'm going to be in contact with my daughter's teacher just to see how things are going. The one thing that teachers always welcome or always have is an open door policy. They want parents to come in. They want to be able to close that gap with what's going on. Yeah, we know some of us may feel that they should be the proactive ones where our students' education is concerned. That is far from true. They are our kids. It's our choice. It's our responsibility to help them. Not that we don't already, but sometimes, or a lot of times, it takes that extra push, the extra step. Be proactive where your kids are concerned. 1, establish that rapport. 2, meet with the teacher outside of the back to school night and group forums. 3, express your concerns. 4, solicit the feedback of the expert. 5, request feedback. Establish a partnership. 6, create a plan of action. 7, follow up. And 8, follow through. You know, at the end of the day, all that we want is our youth, our family, and ourselves to be successful. And that's all we want. That's all I want as a parent and an author, as an educator, is to share tips and strategies that will hopefully make your school year and that of your youth more successful. For more information on the programs that we have, please visit our website at www.TheCreativeGRP.org. To pre-order the copy of my book, What You Need to Know in the First 45 Days of School, please visit us also at www.TheCreativeGRP.org. For bookings, workshops, or conferences, you can visit our website at www.TheCreativeGRP.org, or you can email us at info@thecreativegroup.org, or simply call 443-226-3841. We have a wealth of information to share. We have a wealth of information we want to share with you to make sure that your school year is successful. And remember, success begins and ends at home. What will you do this school year to make it easier on the family, easier on the youth, and most importantly, reduce the stress in your life? Until next time, talk with you soon, and have a great day.